Hello everybody, welcome to Easy Weeknight Cooking with Hart's Desire Spice Blends, and tonight we're going to be doing a recipe given to me by one of our customers. This is a sweet fall coleslaw that is very different than anything else I've ever had, but tonight we're going to be having this alongside some teriyaki chicken, and oh my gosh, is it going to go so well. So let's start off with what we're going to be needing. We are going to need 1/2 head of a small cabbage, 1 medium carrot, or a teaspoon of salt, which technically is optional, so if you're watching the salt, you can totally omit this, but there is a reason for it, so keep on watching. You're also going to need a 1/4 cup of dried cranberries, 1/2 of an apple. My favorite here is Fuji. Why? Because it's got an incredible taste. It's not too tart, not too sweet, and it's just perfect. You're also going to need 3 tablespoons of cider vinegar. We started off with rice vinegar in this one, and I find that the cider vinegar adds that extra little bit of sweet that just puts it right over the edge into, oh my gosh, so good. Up to 2 tablespoons of sugar or your favorite sugar substitute, and 1.5 teaspoons of our pumpkin spice. That really makes it. So we're going to start off with our cabbage and our carrots. Start off by grating your carrot. And I did this in the food processor. You can so do this with a cheese grater. So simple. So start off by grating your carrot, slicing up your cabbage. I've got 1/4 of a cabbage here. The rest of it's right over here. And there's a couple of hacks here. First of all, you're going to cut your cabbage in half and then in quarters. You'll notice there is a core right here that you're going to want to cut off because it does not shred well. So once it's in quarters, you can do that by just slicing diagonally. Now I've got a little wedge that is the core that doesn't shred well. And I'll tell you, my dog loves these. So, you know, you might have a crazy dog like mine that loves a puppy treat. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to cut this into slices. If you're going to be using a food processor like this, you're going to be cutting it into slices that will fit in the stock of your food processor really well. And if you're doing this by hand, you're going to want to make sure you've got relatively thin slices. I'd say no more than 1 inch wide. And when you've done that, for this food processor, I can cut this in half or in quarters. Now, once you've done this, if you're going to be cutting it by hand, you want this really, really thin. And I'm going to start off with this piece. And so when I'm shaving this, I literally am shaving this head of cabbage. Why? Because with this recipe, the smaller the shred, the more taste you get. So I recommend you do a really fine shave of this. But my favorite way to do this, it takes a lot less time, is to use the food processor. This is on a slicing blade. And with the carrots, I use a shredding blade like the cheese. When you're using a slicing blade with your food processor, you're going to be needing one of these. Just pop that in there and let the food processor do all the work. And you're done. Now, if you're not using a food processor, make sure, now that you've sliced your cabbage, we've sliced this, we've gotten rid of that really tough core here, and we are going to slice this really fine so that when you're using all of your dressing on this coleslaw and such, you're going to be getting all of that dressing sucking into these beautiful shreds so much better, and your flavor is going to be fantastic. So you're going to put in your carrots in with your shredded cabbage, and of course the rest of your shredded cabbage. At this point, you're going to add your 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Why? Because cabbage will actually excrete its water under things like cider vinegar. So we want to help that process along, let it wilt a little bit. And salt is just the way to do that. And so you're going to sprinkle your salt over your vegetables, give it a good toss, and by the way, While you're doing this, you're combining your carrots and cabbage really well, and you want to make sure that salt gets well distributed. Then we're going to throw this into a colander and let it wilt just a tiny bit and excrete some of its water under the salt. You're going to let osmosis do its fabulous work here so you don't get a soggy mess come the time you want to serve this. So make sure that salt is well worked through here. Then you're going to put it into a colander. Let it do its fabulous work, because if you've got more salt on one side of the cell barrier, whether it be meat or vegetable, it doesn't really matter. You've got more salt on one side of a cell barrier than you have the other side, and you've got water on one or the other side. You're going to have those cells trying to equalize the amount of water and salt. Therefore, it's going to excrete its water into your sink rather than into your dressing. Put these aside, and now we're going to work on our dressing. Start off with half of an apple. And this is a lot of fun. I'm going to start by slicing this apple into basically much like I do an onion. So I'm going to try to get my slices as close to one end without going all the way through the skin as possible. And then I'm going to cut it the other way once and then dice. So let's go ahead and see if we can do this without the apple running away from me. One slice this way, and now we can get into really fine dice. It is so good, so wonderful. I tasted the salad the first time and said, oh my gosh, this needs apple. And Sue, the gal who gave me this recipe, is just a fabulous cook. She is so good, and what's more, she deals with a whole lot of allergy issues. So she's very careful about what ingredients she puts in her food, and a lot of it is more functional than anything else. My job is to not only make it functional, but also make it tasty, my darlings. So that's just my job. Okay, make sure your apple is really well diced all the way around. Next, I'm going to bring out about a medium to small bowl. Start off with our 2 tablespoons of sugar or sugar substitute, that's totally up to you, our Thai spice, and our cider vinegar. You're going to stir this now and try to get all of that Thai spice really well incorporated, because when you try to do that when you add your fruit, it's just not going to work so well. So make sure this gets really well incorporated first. It kind of starts looking like a really watery chocolate milk and just starts smelling fantastic, very vinegary. I really like the cider vinegar for this because of that extra sweetness you put in there. I tried it with the rice wine vinegar, and it was really good. The rice wine vinegar added this savory note to things that was really fantastic. But to most of the palates in my family, a little odd. So that is one of the reasons why I went with the cider vinegar. It's a little sweeter. This would do really well with the balsamic vinegar, but I didn't want to go that extra sweet. That would probably just really put off of our flavor balance. Meanwhile, now that this is well incorporated, we're going to put in our cranberries and our apples. This is going to allow us to coat our apples really well with that vinegar and keep them different colors. Meanwhile, this vinegar is also going to start hydrating our cranberries just a teeny bit, and it will allow some of those flavors to penetrate while that happens. We are going to bring our shreds back over here. Now, you probably could get away with using a store-bought cabbage mix for coleslaw with this. And it's about the right amount for one of those large bowls. Now, I'm tossing this just a teeny bit so that I can see what's going on. All of this cabbage is now wet. Now, it wasn't wet when I started. That is the water tweeting out of it. So you don't get a bunch of water in the bottom of your coleslaw. Put your slaw right back into the bowl now that it's had a chance to get some of that water out of it. That colander can now go aside. Pick up your dressing. Oh, pour it over the top. Get all them dregs because this stuff is just divine. Not quite gonna drink it this time. Go ahead and toss this really well to coat. The normal nose for American cooking, this smells a little odd right now. You're going, wait a minute, this smells a little too odd to be tasting really great. Now that you really know what you're doing, trust me, my darlings, trust me. Now, this is going to go into the fridge for at least half an hour, up to overnight before you serve. Make sure that before you serve, you toss it again really well. Get all that slaw well coated with the rest of the vinegar that's on the bottom because it will fall through. You're going to be serving this tomorrow. Go ahead and toss it a couple of times before you're going to be serving at a couple of different intervals. That way things stay nice and coated and you get flavor just penetrating that slaw so well. What I have over here, my darlings, is a piece of delectableness. That is this gorgeous slaw. It is so full of beautiful fruit and gorgeous flavor. It is absolutely amazing. And like I said, we're having this next to teriyaki chicken tonight. So what do you say I give it a taste and tell you guys what it's like? My gosh, that does not taste like cabbage at all. Instead, what I taste is mainly fruit. It is so good. Those cabbage and carrots tend to be on the sweet side already. So you're really surrounding those with native flavors that just increase that whole flavor profile. The vinegar in here adds a bit of a zing that gets you right back here. The pumpkin spice really tempers that zing and allows this to taste much more like, say, it almost tastes like a crumble topping. And so it's very cinnamony, very sweet that way. I really enjoy it. Now, the apple and the cranberry just enhances everything. And you can still taste the individual flavors, which is fantastic. So you've got a lot of cinnamon flavor in there. You do taste that sugar coming out. If you're a diabetic, definitely use an alternative sugar in this. And you can reduce the amount of sugar if you find that the first one is a little too sweet. That is totally kosher. I just love what a good apple does to this. It just increases the sweetness amazingly. And so from our house to yours, that is a really great, little odd, but fantastic fall coleslaw. And so you guys keep things tasty. We will see you next week. And don't forget to email me at info@hartspice.com with any questions or comments. Bon appetit.